which there are no promises. Just so we're clear. All right, so looking through some of our numbers and talking to some people, and I'm getting some people saying, I feel like I'm doing the work, but I'm not growing. I feel like I'm making the effort. I feel like I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do, but the results aren't going up. So it's a common thing we run into. So what I did is I did some research. I got on the phone with some good real estate minds. And sometimes I do this and I reach out to people outside of our organization, not because they're better minds than the people within our organization, but sometimes you just need a different perspective from people that aren't so close to the situation. So I reached out to some pretty good coaches and real estate minds and I asked them this question. I said, agent comes to you and says they don't feel like they're succeeding at the level they should be succeeding at. What do you say? And based on the people I talked to, the responses, as it always happens, were pretty much the same as far as, well, here's this, and this could be the issue. So I gathered all this information. I kind of put it together. I made some additional thoughts and notes on it with our kind of the way we communicate and the way we talk with our agents and things like that, and put together this class. So this is kind of a cumulative list, if you will, from people within different real estate organizations on that particular question. I feel like I'm doing the work, feel like I'm putting in the effort, but the results aren't showing up. So if you're in that boat, glad you're here. We're going to go through a number of things. Now, as we go through this, here's what I would prefer from everybody is for you to stay open-minded. Not open-minded necessarily to the point that, oh, wow, that's a good point or that's not a good point. More open-minded to the idea of you might think you're already doing that, but are you really doing it? Or are you really doing it at the level? That's what I'm saying. Because we're going to say some things and you're going to be like, well, I already do that. 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 Robert, you listed 10 things and I do every single one of them. And it's like, okay, I want you to be open minded to the idea that maybe you think you're doing something, but you're not doing it at the level that you should be doing it, or you're really not doing it the way that it's supposed to be done. So just stay open minded to some of the things that we're going to talk about here today. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. So the very first thing, and now this one is straight from me. So the rest of the list will be kind of a cumulative effect in different ways, but this one's straight from me. Why am I not succeeding at the level that I want to? Number one for me is you have no reason to succeed at the level you want to. So when if a seller lead, if you got a seller lead and they don't really have much interest in selling, can you really motivate that person to sell their house? No. Like if they're not motivated to sell, they don't have a reason to sell. They don't have a strong desire to move to a bigger house or downsize or move to a different area. They're probably not going to sell the house. Well, it's the same thing kind of in as a real estate agent. If you don't have a strong desire to make money, if you don't have a strong desire to succeed, if there's not a real thing pushing to do that, you're not going to do it. And the thing that I've always said for years is if you don't know what you're going to exchange the money for, you're not going to do the work. And the main reason you're not going to do the work is prospecting sucks. Like it just does. Nobody really enjoys prospecting. I mean, people say they enjoy it. It's like, yeah, you enjoy it compared to other professions, but you wouldn't do it for free. So, do you have a strong reason to make money? Do you have a strong desire, a strong motivation to make money and do the work. If you don't have that, you're probably never going to succeed at the level you think you're going to succeed. And I run into this all the time. We have an agent in our company that, Robert, I really want to do this. This is the year. This is the year. We're going to do this. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Every year we go through this. Their spouse makes like $400,000 a year. Everything's paid for, living a good life. And so they never do the things because it's like, I don't really need to do it. So the first thing you need to do is identify your goals. What do you want to accomplish? Why are you doing this? And then make that connection every single day. Okay. If you don't know what you're going to exchange the money for, you're not going to do the work. So that's one of the reasons you might not be succeeding at the level you want to. You just don't have a reason to. Find a reason. Okay. Find a reason. The next thing I wrote down here on not succeeding at the level you want to is you expect immediate results. You expect immediate results. Is real estate an immediate result business? No. I wish it was. And yeah, there's times when it's like, you're on floor time and somebody calls and they're ready to go right then and there, or you get a referral and they're ready to do something right away. Yeah, it happens, but more likely not. It's more of a long-term play business. You're expecting immediate results. The problem with expecting immediate results is that you constantly change your habits and your activities. Who here has done a 90-day plan and then scrap that 90-day plan for another 90-day plan and then scrap that 90-day plan for another 90-day? Okay, that's part of the problem. Well, I tried this out and I've been doing it for 2 weeks and it didn't work, so now I'm going to try something else. You have to give things time to manifest. You have to give things time to work. You have to give it a legit shot. Okay. I mean, you just have to make it that's the case. The problem is that we jump from too many options to options and nothing ever really sticks. Okay, you have to give things time to manifest. Now, I'm not saying you got to give things 6 months or a year. Like if it's not working, it's not working, but we expect immediate results. And so we shift from plan to plan. Never going to succeed that way. The other problem with expecting immediate results is that you don't get immediate results, which then makes you think that you're not doing it correctly, and then your mindset goes to hell. And then once the mind goes, the body follows, it's over. Okay? So you have to get off this idea of immediate results. It takes time. One of my favorite quotes is from Eric Thomas, who's a speaker. He says, it takes 21 years to be 21 years old. Okay, it takes time. It takes time. Now, you can speed up the process, but it's still going to take time. Okay, so you can't just expect immediate results. All right, the next thing I wrote down, this is big for some of you. Okay, this is not going to affect all of you. Some of you are a little bit newer, but this is big for some of you. You're stuck in the past, not getting the results you want because you're stuck in the past. So let me give you an example of stuck in the past. Back in 2012, you closed 10 expireds. And you haven't closed one since. But you still hammer expireds all day. 8 a.m. Got to have. Oh, well, people are starting to call at 7:30. I need to start calling at 7. Oh, maybe I should start calling at 6:30. It's like, dude, you've closed like one expired in 10 years. Like, relax. But back in the day, I was this. Yeah, that was a long time ago. You know, oh, maybe short sales are going to come back. I was the REO king back when the market crashed. Like, okay, that was 2009. That was 15 years ago. There's no REO business. Okay, now I'm using that as an example. Some of you do well with expireds, and you keep calling them, but most of you don't. Okay, and so but you did at one point and it worked. So you got stuck in the past, or it's even recently you're stuck in 2021, 2020. The market was great, so many offers, things were selling so quickly. Yeah, okay, great. It's different today. What are you doing now that interest rates aren't 2%? See, some of you are stuck in the past, and that's preventing you from moving forward. You have to adapt. You have to understand the marketplace and just keep moving forward. I had a conversation with one of our agents today that makes almost $1 million on a pretty consistent basis. And they wanted me to run some numbers for them because they're going to expand their market out. Because in the market that they've had for all these years, it's made them all this money. There's not as many transactions. So they're going to expand out 10 miles. And it's an agent that's making almost $1 million a year every year, and it's going to expand out 10 miles because it's like, hey, I don't want to, but I have to because the number of deals is shrinking in their particular market. You have to adapt. You're getting stuck in the past. Now, some of you are stuck in the past in the opposite problem. You failed at something years ago, and because of that, you've been fearful of it. I door knocked a for sale by owner one time. They yelled at me and closed the door, and I haven't door knocked one since. Well, when was that? 2012. It was 12 years ago. Okay. Like, uh, you know, and if that house is still trying to sell it themselves, well, then, you weren't the problem. Okay. So some of you are stuck in the past in a negative way, and might not even be real estate related. You're stuck in the past because of a different sales job that you had. Oh, I was a telemarketer selling whatever, and people were so rude and so mean. It's like, yeah, you were selling whatever. Now you're selling real estate, something more people want to talk about. So you're letting your past dictate your future. You got to get out of the past. Some of you is because you did so well in the past and you haven't adapted. Some of you is because something bad happened and you haven't adapted. Okay. What I've done already can't change, but I can change the future. Get out of the past. Get out of the past. All right, the next thing I wrote down, why you're not succeeding at the level you want to succeed at, you dwell on your mistakes. Oh, I went on a presentation. I was able to get a presentation, but I did it and it was awful. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. Oh, and you dwell on that for like a week instead of just going, hey, at least you got a listing appointment. Good for you. You're halfway there. Why are you dwelling on the fact that you were terrible? Anyone here ever just have an awful, awful sales presentation in their life? Okay, everybody raise your hand. Otherwise, you're just a liar. Happens. I know the Mike Ferry scripts probably better than anybody. Okay. And that's not me bragging. It's just that I've read them 15,000 times because I've role played with agents for 10 years, 30 minutes to an hour a day, 5 days a week. Like I should know them really well. And yet there are times where I might get on role play with an agent and go, what was that? That's the best I could come up with at the time. Like it just happens. Like sometimes you're gonna make a crappy presentation. Sometimes you're gonna make a mistake. It happens. But you have to accept it and move on. Don't dwell on it. Oh my gosh, and then I did this and I didn't even know about it. And then you just talk about it and it gets in your head. Who cares? You make mistakes, move on. Nobody's perfect. You screwed up a presentation. So what? You made a mistake on a contract. So what? You're not the only one. Okay. You called someone by the wrong name. Well, as long as it's not your wife, you're all right. All right. It happens. What are you gonna do? What are you going to do? Okay, but don't dwell on it. You made a mistake, move on. All right, good. I wrote down here next, you focus more on your weaknesses than you do your strengths. You focus more on your weaknesses than you do your strengths. Everybody here has strengths, and your strength might be different from everybody else's. But we always focus on your weaknesses and fixing your weakness. I don't focus on that. Why don't you just focus on your strengths and double down on that? That's why whenever we do business plans, I'll say, hey, what do you either need to work on or keep doing that's already working? I don't ever just say, what do you need to work on? Because that's just focusing on your weaknesses. What are you doing that's already working? Hey, so how are we gonna get a listing? Oh God, I really got to get better at this. Why was that your first instinct to talk about what you need to get better at? What are your strengths? Focus on your strengths. Talk about your strengths. Work on your strengths. Utilize your strengths more instead of working on your weaknesses, believing in your weaknesses. Because then when that's all you talk about, when that's all you think about, when that's all you work on, then you're not going to succeed because your strength is over here and you're just leaving it all by itself. Oh, Robert, I've had this, I have a fear of knocking on doors. I've always had this weakness of walking up to someone's door, knocking on it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. Then just don't do it. Just call people. Problem solved. My weakness is I'm not very good, talking to people that are in bad situations, divorces, financial problems. I know they're likely to sell, but I don't do really good about that. Okay, then go find people that are selling because they got a, job transfer. Like go do that. Go talk to your neighbors. Go work your database. You know, like stop about your weaknesses. Focus on your strengths. What can you double down on your strengths? And then when it comes to your weaknesses, you're not going to fix all of them. That's not a shot. That's just saying like we all have a lot. We're only really good at a couple things. Each person is only really good at a couple things. I say this about myself all the time. I'm awful in life at about 99% of things. Okay. Hey, you want to build this deck on your second floor? No, I don't want to do that at all. That's not a skill of mine. Hey, Robert, can you help me out with this contract? Nope. Also not a skill of mine. Hey, I want to work on my mindset. I got it. Okay. So I don't spend any time getting better at contracts. I don't. Because instead of saying, gosh, maybe I'd be a better manager if I was better at the contract, like, nope, we got other people to do that. I'm going to focus on how do I be a better communicator to real estate agents to get them to do this? How do I learn more about personality styles? How do I learn more about body language to help them learn this? What other, like, I'm focused on what I'm good. I'm not focused on all the other stuff. Robert, I'm thinking about doing social media. I'm not the guy and I'm not going to learn it. I don't care. I don't see it as a weakness. It's just not something I'm good at. Double down on your strengths instead of just focusing on your weaknesses. But pick and choose the weaknesses that you actually want to improve on because you're not going to improve all of them. That was my point. You're not going to improve all of them. So pick one and get better at that one. Okay. Well, I've had this weakness for 10 years. Okay, it's probably not going to get better in the next 10 days. So get over it. Move on. There's so many opportunities in real estate that if you just focused on your strengths, you would be just fine. And so Lee Marcus, who's in Chicago, does a couple $1 million a year individually. His team does 3 to 4 total. All he works on, he masters his database and he masters the neighborhood that he works and lives in. That's it. And he says that if you can master those two things, you'll make a fortune in real estate. How much time do you spend on for sale by owners, Lee? Don't. How much time do you spend on probates? I don't really spend much time on that. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying he's mastered two aspects of generating business. So if yours is probate and you're like, yeah, I'm generating 4 or 5 deals via probate, great. How can you get more probate? Instead of saying, okay, well, I've got a few deals from probate. Maybe I should, but I'm not any good here. Who cares? All right, I wrote down here next why you're not succeeding at the level you want to. You fear failure. You fear failure. You don't like failure. Now, in our business, what is that R word that we generally associate with failure that we just dislike so much?
Rejection.
Rejection. Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. It's vitally important that you understand something about our business if you want to be successful. Can't overstate how important this is. Okay, ready? You are going to fail constantly. You are going to fail way more than you succeed. Luckily, commission checks are pretty nice. But this fear of rejection, fear of failure, you are never going to get to the point in your business where you are succeeding more than you're failing. That is not going to happen if you're doing any reasonable amount of deals. If you just have your license and you never prospect, and every so often your family member calls you to list their house, then great, you've broken the myth. But if you're trying to do any reasonable amount of deals, you're never going to succeed more than you fail. By not even close. Because even if you were like really good and it was like, yeah, it takes me 50 contacts for every closing. Hey, that means 49 people said no to the one that finally led to a closing. And that would be if you're really good. Most people, it's a couple hundred if they did their numbers. So you have to get over the failure. You have to get over the rejection. There's just no way to get better, to do more business if you're not going to get told no all the time. If you're not willing to face rejection all the time. And the more, if you want to really speed up the process, then the no's have to be verbal because there's multiple ways you can fail or get rejected. You can send out a bunch of mailers and nobody calls you back. Okay. You can do a big social media campaign and nobody likes your post or nobody comments or nobody calls you on it. You can do a big email campaign and nobody responds. Like those are ways of getting rejected, but those are passive ways of getting rejected. So it takes longer to get better with that type of rejection. If you really want to speed up the process to get good, then make your rejections verbal. Go talk to people face to face. Go talk to people on the phone. Get 100 rejected, 100 verbal no's. Okay, instead of the passive ones, takes longer to do that. But you're going to fail. I did a we were doing a thing in Long Beach. No, I'm sorry, we did a thing in Glendora a couple years ago. Mark and Al did this thing where some agents wanted to come interview them and interviewed them and whatnot. And one of the agents asked the question. They said, "Why do you think you succeed more than other agents?" And Al looks at me and he goes, "I don't know, Robert. Why do you think we succeed more than every other agent?" I said, "They get told no more." Because you have to remember with Mark and Al, now at this point in their careers, Mark is retired essentially. He just collects money. And Al doesn't make very many contacts. So you have the youth, Robert Kofer, Mohit, Brianna, Vivian, kind of doing the bulk of that stuff. But Mark and Al themselves, when they started, were making 50 contacts each a day. So between the two of them, because they joined as a team pretty much immediately, they're making 100 contacts a day between the two of them. They were doing that 5 days a week in the hopes of getting 3 appointments a week. So they were making 500 contacts a week between the two of them to try to set up 3 listing appointments, which means that was 497 times they didn't set up an appointment. Some of you don't make 497 contacts a year. I'm not trying to be mean. That's reality because I see some of you will reply back say, "Oh, I made 10 contacts this week." Like, okay, well, if you did that for 40 weeks, that'd be 400 contacts. They were doing that in 4 days. They just got told no so much more than everybody else. But over time, but they didn't let it bother them. They just kept getting better. Oh, I got to fix our pitch. We got to fix our pitch. We got to do this. We got to get better. And ultimately, now it's been 23 years. They joined the company in 2000, so they've been here for 23. They've been the number one team all 23 years. So you're always going to fail more than you succeed. Get over that fear of failure. Get over that fear of rejection. You're never going to succeed at a high level in this business if you're not okay with that. But everybody does it. As Mike Ferry says, every agent who has made any reasonable amount of money has failed a lot. It's okay. Here would be a challenge. I offered this challenge years ago. I don't really talk about it very much because it's kind of a negative. But I got this from Darren Hardy. For those of you who don't know who Darren Hardy is, he's a author and speaker and publisher, things like that. Really sharp guy. He's very direct though. So if you're not into very direct, probably not your kind of guy. He issued a challenge to his team to see they had to get, instead of focusing on the yeses, they had to go get 100 no's a day. That was the challenge. You had to go get 100 no's a day, with the idea that you're just going to build up you're just going to build up that strength, that resiliency to the no's. But if you're also going out and getting 100 no's a day, you're probably going to find a yes, was his other point on that. So maybe that's a challenge you have to say to yourself is, I'm going to go get 50, instead of saying I'm going to try to get an appointment. Maybe the type of person needs to focus on the no's. All right. Next thing I wrote down here. You think your problems are unique. You think the reason you're not succeeding is a unique problem. Now, barring a real personal situation, it's not. And what I mean, like a personal situation, is like you have like a legit health issue. I talked to a guy yesterday. I'll tell you what, you want to talk about failure and really making an ass of yourself. I did that yesterday. Called an agent. True story. I called an agent in our company yesterday. I don't know who the guy is, okay, because there's a lot of people I don't know who they are. But I called him because we have a thing. We have to call all the agents in the company every month. So I have my list, just like everyone else does. I called a guy and I said, "Hey, wanted to check in. How you doing? What's your plan?" He goes, "Well, I'm retired." I was like, "Oh, good for you." And he's like, "Well, I'm retired because I had 2 strokes." And I'm like, "Oh." So I went in with the "good for you, you're retired." And it's like, "No, I'm retired because I have health problems." I was like, "Man, I feel like an ass right now." Okay. So, and so I've tried, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be like, hey, congratulations," type of thing. And he was cool about it, but you know, that's part of the gig. That's a unique problem. A lot of everyone else's problems, we think we have problems, we think our situation is different. It's really not. Well, the market is different, and it's only affecting you. Well, in our area, this is, the sales are down. Oh, that's right, and it's only in your area sales are down. Well, I can't help my sellers find a replacement property. Yep, and that's only your situation. Like, we make up these problems as to why we're not succeeding, and we think it's unique to us, and that's not the case in most times. Okay, so everyone has the same problems. You need to take a step back and look at and say, okay, everyone has the same problems, but there's still people buying and selling homes in my neighborhood. So it's not impacting everybody the same way it's impacting me. So again, if it's a real personal situation, then this doesn't apply to you. I'm talking about unique problems. Okay. Well, Robert, I have kids. Like, I'm not trying to be insensitive, but a lot of people have kids. And I'm not telling you to abandon your kids, but you can balance it. I've written schedules for people. I'll say, what time you drop your kids off? 8:30. What time you pick them up? We'll pick them up at 2:30. Okay, great. Let me create a schedule from you from 9 to 2. And if you follow this schedule from 9 to 2, you'll do some business. And we have agents that do that. We have an agent in Marietta who's closed 3 deals so far this year, and she's got 2 kids that she's one of them is not even old enough to go to school, so she watches that one, and grandma watches it a few hours a day. The other one she's picking up, so it's like she's only got a few hours a day that she can do real estate, but those few hours she does it. She's closed 3 deals so far this year. So your problems are not unique. It just might mean for some of you, if it's a real estate problem, it's definitely not unique. Now, if it's something like kids or things like that, okay, that's a little bit of a different scenario. We just got to create a different schedule for you. But that just means when you have that schedule, when you have that real estate time, you got to do it. But your problems are not unique. All right, a few more points here. I wrote down here next. You refuse to get better. You refuse to get better. So I've said this 100 times, so I know a lot of you have heard me say this before, but I'll say it again in case you haven't. I am the ultimate hate of sales cliches person. I think most sales cliches are stupid. Now, that's just my opinion. And let me give you one of them that I hate the most. Every no gets me closer to a yes. Well, that should say every no gets me closer to a yes, dot, 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 if I actually improve on the no's that I'm getting. Because if this is your pitch, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller owner, so look, I mean, I don't know if you're thinking about selling, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I mean, I'm sure you're not, because it's probably a really great house and it's a really great area, and the school district's phenomenal. I don't know why anyone would sell here, but just in case you might be thinking about selling, and I know you have a lot of different real estate agents to choose from, and some of them are really great and a lot more production than I have. But just in case, maybe one time, if you want to just give me a shot, I mean, it's not a big deal, but like, no, we're good. Click. Oh, every no gets me closer to a nest. Not if you say that again. Okay. You have to get better, right? We all have to get better. So, are you just doing the same thing? Are you just saying the script the same way? Are you just going after the same people? Are you focusing on the same neighborhoods, and it's not leading you to success? You've got to either get better, you've got to make a change. I'm not getting any business from my database. Well, what are you saying to your database? How often are you contacting your database? Like you've got to adapt. You've got to get better. And so often people that aren't succeeding at the level they want aren't doing that. They're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, which is the definition of what? Insanity. I see some of you doing the gesture. Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Now, if I went to your face and without joking said, "I think you're a crazy person. I think you're actually insane," you would be upset. And yet, a lot of people, that's what they do in real estate. They're insane. You don't fix the pitch. You don't get better. You do the same thing. Oh, I talked to an agent the other day. Well, I'm working my farm. I said, okay, I'm curious. How many deals have you gotten from your farm? How long have you been working your farm? About 10 years. How many deals do you get out of it a year? About one. I'm like, what are you doing? Okay, either A, you have a really bad farm, or B, you're really bad at farming. Either way, we need to change. You can't just keep doing the same thing. You got to get better. You got to adapt. So take a look at your business and say, when's the last time I updated my script? When's the last time I updated my pitch? When's the last time I updated the area that I'm working? When's the last time I changed my sources? When? I had a conversation with another agent the other day. I said, you got to call people from a different area. Oh, but I like this area. I know you like this area. They don't like you. You got to call people from a different area. These are some of the conversations I have that people stop coaching. But that's just okay. That's okay. I never pretended to be the guy that was just going to always be the cheerleader. I'm your biggest cheerleader, but I'm okay being the guy that holds you to some accountability. You have to be willing to improve. You have to be willing to get better. Okay. If you're not signing any listings, well, how often are you working on your listing presentation? Do you just wing it? Okay. Like, do you have a system in place? How often are you upgrading your pre-listing packages? Some people are just not willing to improve. It's the same script over and over and over again. It's the same people over and over and over again. If you're not succeeding, do something different. I don't even care if you follow somebody different, really. I've been following Mike Ferry for all these years, and I'm not doing anything. Tom Ferry event, I don't give a shit. Go see what Brian Buffini's doing. I don't know. I don't care who you follow. I don't care what script you use. Do something different. All right. I wrote down here next, last couple points, why you're not succeeding at the level you want to. You're not willing to do the basics. You're not willing to do the basics. So, basics. How often are you role playing? Your scripts and objection handlers. Well, I've been doing this for 25 years. Well, LeBron James has been playing professional basketball for more than half of his life, which is pretty crazy to think about. And he still practices every single day. I'm pretty sure he's got basketball figured out. Okay. I've said the just listed script 10,000 times in my life. Okay. Today we're going to do it 10,001. Okay. Go back to the basics. Go back to, for some of you that maybe had some success at one point, go back to the things that you were having success with. You got to practice your script, your objection handlers. You got to practice your presentations. You have to practice a buyer consultation. How often are you out previewing property? Now, if you don't want to do, I recommend doing it in person, but if you want to do it virtually, I'll accept that. But how well do you really know your market? And when I say that, see, for some of you, it's like, well, I've been in this market for 30 years. I understand that, but today's market is slightly different than 30 years ago. A little bit. How well do you know the market today? Okay. Like, sometimes we got to go back to the basics, following a strict schedule, because sometimes we might be a little loose in our schedule. I kind of get into the office around this time. How about getting into the office at a set time every day, leaving at a set time, following a schedule, just back to the basics. And for some of you that are newer, you just need to do the basics. You got into real estate thinking that deals were just going to fly your way. And it's like, no, 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 you got to go to the basics. I sent this out on Telegram today on kind of building the foundation moving forward. I think if you're a newer licensee, you should definitely follow it. And even if you're a seasoned person, there's a lot of good things in there you should follow. You got to build the foundation. You got to go back to the basics. Which might be why you're not succeeding at the level you want. All right. I wrote down here why you're not succeeding at the level you want to. You're not engaged. You're not engaged. So here's what I mean by not engaged. If we're being honest, real estate's a pretty lonely business because it's really just you, kind of like tennis, right? I mean, it's not like the entire company goes on the listing presentation. It's not like the entire company is writing up an offer. Like, it's you. You're going on the presentation. You're writing up the offer. It's your client. It can be you're the one making the phone calls. It's not a group call. We're not on a conference line. We're not door knocking together. Like, it's you. We have the support, but it's really an individual business, which means it can be a very lonely business. And if you're not engaged with something, it's really lonely. And when you get lonely, the mind wanders to the opposite of positive. You have to get engaged. Now, some of you are engaged all the time. That's great. But there's maybe you need to get this is one of those be open minded. Maybe you need to engage in even more. Maybe you need to go engage with other agents. Maybe you need to get out of your office and go engage with some agents in the other offices. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe you're good. Maybe you need to engage more in some of the training classes. Maybe, because I see some of you, but some of you I don't see very often. That's fine. I understand, like, you hate the Zoom thing. I get it. I can't do it anywhere else. Like, we're too spread out. I'm sorry. But maybe you need to engage more in those types of things. Maybe you need to engage in an accountability group. Maybe you need to engage in a mastermind group. Maybe you need to engage with something, but you've got it. You can't just be the person. I've got this figured out. I'm not really going to communicate with other people. I'm not going to bounce ideas off of other people. It's just too lonely of a business. And just like we said earlier, you're facing way too much rejection. So I'm lonely. I'm facing rejection. If you're not engaged and plugged in, you're kind of stuck. Okay, so engage more, get involved with more agents, get involved with more classes, get involved with more people, more accountability. That's going to make a bigger difference. All right. Okay, and then the last one I wrote down here, why you're not succeeding at the level you want to succeed at. Why you're not succeeding at the level you want to succeed at. You don't engage with your best people enough. Let's try and figure out the best way to word that. And here's what I mean. You have people in your life that are fans of you, the person. And for a lot of reasons that I hear, we don't like to lean on those people to get more business. And I hear it, get it, but I hear it. But when you look at the agents that are succeeding at the highest levels, not just in our company, but outside, because I talk to a lot of different people. I'm in a lot of different groups. 60, 70, 80% of their business comes from past client centers of influence. And I'll ask them, how much of your time is spent prospecting? And they'll say 60, 70, 80% of my time is on past client centers of influence. And yet there's some people that say, I don't like calling them. I don't like asking for business. I don't like doing this. It's like, well, you're making life harder on yourself because you're choosing to take the hardest route to be successful, which is talking to people you don't know. Now, I'm not saying you can't build a business that way, because a lot of people have built their business that way. But this fear of calling or talking to people you know and being brave enough to ask them for referrals or ask them what their real estate plans are, and you're not doing it, it's really making life harder on yourself, because that's where the bulk of your business should come from. And this is one of those, again, open-minded moments, because some of you might be saying, well, Robert, all my business comes from past client centers of influence. That's great, but are you getting as many as you should? Because if you have 200 people in your database, you should be getting somewhere between 15 to 20 transactions. So if you're getting 8, that's great. I'm glad you're getting 8, but there's 7 to 12 transactions missing, either from them or referral from them. You're just not working it the way that you should. And it's because this, oh, I don't want to beg for business type of a thing. So you've got to get over that.
Robert, what do you think is the reason that people do not call the database and past clients? It's supposed to be the easiest calls.
Because they feel like they're begging for business, or that they're that they're ruining the relationship, that it becomes just a sales relationship. And if you present it that way, then yeah. But I've never read a script for past client centers of influence that makes it seem like you're begging for business, or this is simply just if every time you call someone and the only time you ever call them, the only time you ever text them, the only time you ever talk to them in person is only about real estate, then yes, it is a business only relationship. That's your fault, not mine.
Yeah.
But if you call them and every so often just say, hey, I just want to give you an update of what's going on in the market. By the way, do you know of anybody? Like, that's not begging for business. That's providing value and asking them if they know that they have any referrals of anyone that's looking to buy or sell. And here's the thing, they like you. They generally want to help you and would be willing to do it. We do it to ourselves. I don't want to beg for business. I'm not asking to beg for business. I don't want this to be only a sales relationship. I'm not asking you to do that either. I'm asking you to every couple months call them, give them some sort of market update, and ask them if they know someone who's looking to buy or sell a house with energy, enthusiasm, and not caution. Hey, Juan Carlos, hey, I hate to ask you, right? I hate to be this person, but do you happen to know of anyone that might be looking? I mean, it's no pressure. You just made it awkward by doing it that way. We make it more awkward for people to help us than if we just were confident about it. They'd help us all day.
Yeah, I believe that there might be a guilty feeling.
Yeah.
And because maybe your customer service sucks and you don't feel like calling them back. Something like that could be.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So fix your customer service. Like because, and I'm not saying that to you, you're right. Well, maybe I'm not good enough for the job. Okay, well then all the things we just talked about. I don't have the best customer service. I mean, they probably know other real estate agents that are better than me. Okay, well, what are you doing in the business? You know what you should do in that case? Call those agents that you know that are better than you and ask them if you can join their team. Say, hey, I know you're better than me, so can I call my database and say I work for you? I would have more confidence. Like, okay. Like we make it so much harder on ourselves. But if you don't think you're the right person, if you think you don't have the best service, if you're not sure you can help them in the way that they want, then that's the biggest sign to yourself of like, well, if I can't even help people that know me and like me, how the hell am I going to help people that don't know me and like me? I'm really screwed in this business. Hey, blinding flash of the obvious. Today's the day. I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm going to go upgrade my systems. I'm going to upgrade my skills. I'm going to do everything I can to be better. So when I call someone, I have the ultimate confidence that they should work for me. Because if you're going on a listing presentation with anybody and you're walking up the driveway and you're going, I hope they give me this listing, just turn around and walk back to the car and save everybody some time. Because when you're walking up the driveway, you should be going, I'm going to win this listing. And if you're not saying that to yourself, just go home. I think everyone here has that ability, but sometimes I have to make you believe it before you do. So there you go. All right, everybody. That's all I got. It's not a fun topic, but hopefully we got something out of this today. There was 1 or 2 points in there that made a difference for you. But look at those. See if any of those apply to you. Again, be open-minded because maybe you think that none of them apply to you. Just be open-minded that maybe there's something there. And let's turn it around and have an awesome rest of the year.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. You're
Excellent
welcome.
meeting, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.